And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside Los
Angeles. I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, believe it or not, I am live tonight from my dance apartment here in New York City, Manhattan, Upper East Side, trying to, do a little bit of the bald truth because we haven't been on the air for, God, it's got to be at least 5 weeks that I haven't done a show live. I want to thank all of you guys for all of your well wishes, and for the guys who just write me to ask me about the show, go screw yourself. If you're going to take the time to write me and bitch about the show, at least ask how my father is. You know what I mean? Andrew, are you there, by the way?
I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, at least ask how my father is.
I'm sorry. I'll stop.
Not you, but all these guys that are writing me about the show. It's like, all right, listen, I'm a human being. I got shit that I got to do. I got to stop doing that, right? I got stuff that I got to do. And, a lot of stuff happening in my life. Maybe ask how I am. Maybe ask what's happening with my dad. I don't know. Not like, where is the god darn show?
Where's the show, Spence?
That's all they want to know. And I'm not talking about like 1 or 2 emails. It's the amount of emails that we receive are insane. And most people could really give an S about me, about my family, or about anything about my life. All they want is the show.
Well, I'm excited you're back. I'm really excited you're back.
Well, I'm glad that I'm back too. And with that said, listen, I appreciate you guys writing in and taking the time to even care about the Bald Show. So let me give out the phone number. It's on the screen. Different number, 646-200-3410. That's 646-200-3410. Now, I didn't contact anybody. I wasn't sure if we were going to do the show live tonight. So if Joe from Staten Island is watching or calling in, I'm sorry that I didn't have my staff, as you would say, contact you. But, I'm a little busy here. And don't think I didn't file that, that away, what you guys were talking about on Friday night, Joe. Because I filed that away. Right, Andrew?
You've been off the air. You've been off the air for about a month now. And we've been doing a free-for-all on Friday night. So you've been calling in slowly. I mean, it's been going on for like a month. Every week, Joe calls in, and he says, maybe I should be doing a show. Maybe I should be doing a show. And last week, him and Jerry called in, and they did a mock show on the air.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a slow mutiny. I will say that.
This is how it happens.
Jerry, I can understand. Do your own. I just froze. But Jerry, do your own transsexual bald show. Am I back? Yeah, do your own transsexual bald show. That's cool. I'm cool with that.
I
Joe,
I have a question about that, Spence. How did the hair loss show? Because I've been listening since 2008. So how did the show turn into the circus that it is? With Joe and Jerry and the transsexual stuff and the castration. How did that all happen?
Leaving radio did that. When I was on radio, I was on the set clock. It was a real show. We took call after call after call. It was promoted by the individual stations. And then I went over to XM, and I decided, what? Let's try to give this a go completely independently, completely, on the internet. And that wasn't easy. So my loyal listeners followed me. And I kind of opened up the chat room privately just to a handful of people, and the chat was pretty normal. Joe had not yet opened up about being what would you call him? He basically...
He's a recluse.
Well, he's a recluse, but he's basically like he wants to be a transsexual.
He fantasizes about being a woman. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That wasn't really talked about too much on the radio show. That all started to come out within the confines of the internet, and when I say confines, I'm being facetious, the fact that, it seemed like it was a smaller show, but the truth is, in the end, we reach a much broader audience. So I thought it was funny that this is when Joe decided to come out, in a sense. And then Joe met, like guys like Jerry through your crazy chat and the fact that you had an open chat. So that's how it all started, man. And I got to tell you, I don't like it.
You don't like it at all?
I don't like it at all. Hey, listen, it's okay. I like Jerry. I think Jerry, he gives you shit in text, but when he gets on the phone, he seems like a really normal, nice guy. He's funny, he's smart. Joe's been he's getting a lot worse. Now, if you just tell me every time my internet freezes, so I know that I can pause or whatever. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
Yeah. But I definitely think Joe has gone over the top, and I think that he's gotten a lot more depressed over the years. And I think it's really taken away, and Joe, I don't know if you're listening, I'm not in the chat, it's really taken away from really what the show's about. A lot of these guys want to concentrate on the cutting edge stuff, which is great. But frankly, most of the cutting edge stuff will never come to fruition. What I like to concentrate on is trying to guide people in a safe direction and help them with what we have that works today, what we have in our current arsenal. And yes, that includes surgical hair restoration. But the truth is, I always say that surgery is a last resort. And I'm not here to sell surgery, but if you're considering doing anything for your hair loss, these are your options. You have surgical hair restoration, traditional harvesting strip method, and FUE, the different variants of all, of both methods. You have finasteride, you have dutasteride, you have minoxidil. Now you have Latisse, you have low-level laser light therapy, which I don't currently recommend. And there we go. I told these people I'm going to be doing a show.
And
so do me a favor. Turn off my mic. Speak for a second.
I will continue it. So Spencer's stepping away. His point is that there are different solutions for different people. And I know there are people like Joe, and I know there are people in the chat room that really want to hear about a groundbreaking announcement. But the reality is we don't have that yet. We don't have a groundbreaking announcement. So what do you do when you really don't have that one cure that Joe is waiting for? Well, there's other things, like Spencer said. There's minoxidil, there's finasteride, last resort, there's a hair transplant. And I think for a show like this, it's extremely important to talk about those treatments. And I'll tell you why. I have a lot of friends that are, they're just starting to lose their hair. They're in their early 30s. This is the time where it becomes an issue for a lot of people. They may not notice it when they're 25, 26, but when they're 31, 32, 33, that's when it starts kicking in. So what do? They go to the internet. And that is one of the worst places to get information when it comes to hair loss and hair loss treatment, because there's, for every fact and for every legitimate treatment out there, there is a BS potion or lotion or whatever you may call it that people are trying to sell you. I recently had a conversation with someone, and he knows that I'm involved in the show, and he knows Spencer, and we were discussing, over a drink, we were discussing his hair loss, and he was asking me what I think, and he told me that he ordered some ointment from Brazil, and he paid $350 for a little vial of it, and he was convinced that this is going to cure his hair loss. This was it. This was the treatment that would do it. And I told him, if there was a treatment like that, if there was a potion that magically brought your hair back, don't you think that whoever created that, whatever that treatment is, would be on the front page of the New York Times, would be on the front page of Time Magazine? It would be the biggest news out there. There's not, the secret medication does not exist. But what you can do, you could do finasteride, you could do minoxidil. And when I brought up Propecia and brought up Rogaine, he immediately went to the side effects. I think for a lot of people, it's hard to come to grips with the fact that they're losing their hair, and it's very difficult for them to accept the fact that there's only 1 or 2 treatments out there that could potentially help them. So they would rather grab on to, the secret thing that might help. And, this shows like this provides you with information so you don't fall under those, traps that exist on the internet. Phone number is 646-200-3410. That's 646-200-3410. That's a call in the number. Of course, you could Skype us. GFQ hotline, that's open too. Spencer is back, I believe. Hey, Spencer, you back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to take
No
that call. It was actually one of my dad's physicians, and obviously we're going through pretty much of a pretty tremendous ordeal with something that kind of surprised us all that just popped up about my dad's situation. So certainly not easy. I saw what you were saying to some degree, and I heard what you were saying to some degree. And this is the thing. We put up Bald Truth Talk message forums. I was really asked to do it by, some of the more honest guys in the industry, in my view. And, the thing about message forums is that, it's content that's created by users. It's user-generated content. You never know who the F is writing what, and you never know really where it's coming from. Our forum really is basically a private forum. So what that means is people sign up, they kind of have to be approved. There's a significant amount of moderation, which has gotten a lot tighter over the last few months. We try to keep it as loose as possible, but the problem is, at least according to the moderators and to what I've been reading, even recently, it kind of evolves in the wrong direction, kind of goes out of control, and then there's a lot of misinformation that's put out there.
But why do people grab onto the misinformation? It's almost, I think it's possibly some sort of coming to terms type process that people go through where they would rather grab onto the misinformation, things that they know it's not going to work. I mean, people know that this magic ointment from Brazil is not going to cure your hair loss, but they would.
That's the problem. They don't know it.
I think they do. I honestly think that they do. It's a false sense of hope, like Brian Monroe said in the chat room. I think there are a lot of people.
These young guys are really being swayed by all of the, anti-propecia information that is online. And I get it. If I was young at this point, if I was just starting the hair loss process, if I, had access to the information that's out there today, that is provided by, in some cases, God knows who, I would be scared shitless. I probably would not have taken that drug. And, and that's why, listen, knowledge is absolutely power, but sometimes too much knowledge is paralyzing, and you don't know where this information is coming from for the most part. So you really have to take certain things online with a grain of salt. People are trying to avoid using the medication that works, and they are looking and basically grasping at straws to find agents that work in a similar way to finasteride, whether by a similar mechanism or being as effective without side effects, especially adverse sexual side effects. At this point, and there are people out there who are going to, including Bald Jerry, who are going to disagree, most of what's out there and that's been used for years, including for RU58841, or I can't remember the exact, I usually get that right, has not been statistically and consistently proven to be effective in the long term. Most of the guys that have used these topical preparations have either stopped communicating about it online, have stopped using it altogether, have not had success with it, and then switched to finasteride after years of trying to avoid finasteride. It's just the way that it is. I am not concerned about guys, listen, I think everyone has the right to do whatever they want with their own bodies. But I think that the information needs to be out there about the reality of what works and what doesn't. And also the reality of, the idea that there's a lot of experimental stuff out there and a lot of bro science that's being circulated online. You have to check your resources. You have to know where you're getting this information from. And to just, it's wonderful to start like a community trial, and it's wonderful to gather as much information independently about specific protocols as possible. But none of these protocols can actually be specific. Everyone is doing things in their kitchen sink and then writing about it anecdotally online and giving people, in my view, a lot of false hope. And frankly, they're wasting precious time that they'll never get back as far as their hair is concerned. Because if you don't intervene early, there is absolutely, with effective treatments, there is no chance of saving what you have. And really, that's the key. Slowing the progression or stopping the progression, keeping what you have, so that if these future treatments do come to fruition, or if you decide to have surgery or wear a hairpiece, you have a lot more hair to work with. And it is frustrating, I have to say, because I see these guys, and I'm telling you, I've watched some of these guys who originally joined the forum 4 or 5 years ago, refused to take finasteride, who are now dipping their toe into the finasteride water.
And they could have done something if they had jumped into it early on. I'm one of these people that I want to go on finasteride. I haven't, not because I did to kind of, for full disclosure, I was on finasteride for about a month and a half, and I didn't have any side effects. I didn't see any changes, nothing. And I stopped. This was a couple of years ago, but I have no problem going on it. It's just I'm lazy and I'm not going to a doctor to get finasteride. But there are a lot of people that are my age and they're starting to see their hair loss, happen, and they're not doing anything because they're terrified of it.
Well, yeah, but I think you're borderline because you say you see something. I really don't see much going on. Since I've met you, you've kind of looked the same. But you say you see something going on. So for me, it's like, you know what, dude? Wait and see. You don't want to jump on anything before prematurely, because what happens if, and it can sometimes exacerbate the situation or kind of hasten the process where it wouldn't have actually occurred as quickly. Some guys, sadly, will lose at the beginning before they kind of stabilize. You don't want to be in that position. But you've said that you've taken it for a month and a half, so maybe you wouldn't be. But I look at you now, you got a full head of hair at this stage, and you're what, 42? I'm just kidding. You're what, 29?
29.
Yeah, you're a kid. So, but you are at a stage where, a lot of your contemporaries are pretty bald by now. I would say.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like that. There's a lot of people like that are really... It's bizarre to me because I have a lot of friends that I'm seeing the hair loss start. And they come to me and I tell them what to do. And they say, no, I don't want to do that. And then they tell me about a magic pill that they could take. That's not anywhere. It's not, there's no pill for it. They're ordering it somewhere online and who knows what it really is.
Listen, dude, I see stuff being posted online. I see stuff on the Dr. Oz show about foods to eat to stop hair loss, and other shows. I don't want to be sued, but I think it was on the Dr. Oz show, and it's infuriating because these are celebrities, and these are celebrity physicians who the mainstream society looks at for advice and looks to for advice, and frankly, in my view, they don't even know what the F they're talking about. I was on the Dr. Oz radio show, and I remember, and this is obviously he's an extremely accomplished guy. He's a cardiologist and a cardiac surgeon, right? So, the guy is absolutely, an expert in his field. But the questions that he was asking me about hair, it was almost comical. And then we were both in an article in Reader's Digest magazine about a year after I was on his show. And I gave my recommendations for hair loss, which were obviously, that basically saying that is, genetic for the most part, talked about what worked, what didn't work. On his end, with this guy,
but
Dr.
what was he
Royson,
asking you? Like, what kind of questions was he asking?
Well, let me get back to the Reader's Digest thing. And he was basically, his list was like, take biotin and, eat more protein and all this stuff. We know that doesn't mean, S. when it comes to androgenetic alopecia. And it doesn't matter what your diet is. Frankly, listen, I'm a big believer in diet and lifestyle changes. And I wrote the first chapter in The Bald Truth about diet and hair loss. But the truth of the matter is, if you are genetically predisposed to male pattern baldness, it doesn't matter, how much biotin you take, or how much protein you have in your diet, or what omega-3 fatty acids you decide to ingest. You're not going to stop your hair loss. Combing your hair, waiting for your hair to dry before you comb it, is not going to stop your hair loss. And this is the type of information that they provided in the same article that I was in. You want to know what kind of questions he asked? I mean, all the basic stuff that, I know that he was interviewing me, but this was a doctor's show. So instead of having an open conversation about it, a conversation where, like you would talk to any other physician, where they kind of have some sort of an understanding of the hair loss process, it was almost as though he had never, ever dealt with hair loss before. So I'm getting a text now. Let's see what this is. Oh, it's interesting. So anyway, let me give out the phone number, 646-200-3410. That's 646-200-3410. Andrew, listen, we should take a break now.
All right, let's take a little break. Let's and then we'll get the lines up, because I got a couple of people on hold right now.
All right, great. Let's take a break.
All right, we're going to take a little break, right back. And we'll be right back after this.
All right.
Stay tuned.
Hey, guys, we are back. Phone number 646-200-3410. Listen, doing the show from my dad's apartment here in New York City. It's not easy, but we are making it work the best that we can. I apologize to all you guys for not being live for the last 5 weeks. It is what it is. We try to get the information out to you guys. We try to provide as much content as possible. Obviously, we opened up the forum, I guess 4 or 5 years ago, so that you guys can communicate with each other and learn about the latest and greatest of everything hair. But the problem is, there's so much crap that goes on all message forums that, in my view, it is really difficult to get completely objective information. Frankly, you really have to do your due diligence. No matter what you do, no matter what information is out there, no matter what you research. Say you're researching surgical hair restoration. And like I tell everyone who's considering surgery, the truth is anything can happen. And you know what? It sometimes does. This is cosmetic surgery. So, to me, surgery is a last resort. You can go to the best of the best of the best, and you can have complications. And that's something that I try to let you guys know on each and every broadcast. So, look, first things first, dealing with hair loss, go see a doctor, get yourself assessed. Don't buy some, BS product on the internet. Go with FDA-approved product, stuff that we know works. If for some reason you have issues with the FDA-approved products, that's when you kind of start moving forward to and onto the, maybe some of the questionable stuff, some of the stuff that has a lot of anecdotal evidence. And there is some, there is something to some of the experiments that are happening online, some of the anecdotal experimentation that is happening online. And I cannot blame people for trying everything to stop this, devastating disease of the spirit. But I just want you guys to be cautious. I tell people, even before you consider surgery, consider wearing a hairpiece. I know it's crazy to some people, but you know what? You could always get rid of a hairpiece. If it doesn't work out for you, if it's something that you feel completely uncomfortable with, after trying, then consider surgery. That's the way, I think you really have to go about it. Unfortunately, what most people do, because everyone wants the natural approach, when the fact of the matter is, you're having cosmetic surgery, so that's not necessarily natural either. They go for surgery first in many cases. Some guys are going for surgery without even getting on finasteride, which I think is a huge mistake because hair loss is progressive. And they won't even consider wearing a hairpiece before they have surgery. So if you're young, if you're under the age of 35, I would say that that's something you probably don't even want to consider, but a lot of people do. If you do have surgery under the age of 35, personally, I tell people that, I wouldn't have a conventional strip surgery under the age of 35, but, people still do. And do your due diligence. Do as much research on your physician as possible, and realize that each and every doctor out there, has had someone who is probably not that happy. That's just the way of the world. I'm dealing a lot with the medical field now because of my father's issues. And I am doing research, and I'm finding, these top doctors in a specific field. And as you dig deeper, there is always someone out there that's having some issue with this particular doctor. So what do you do? Where do you go? I'm at the point now where I'm so cynical, it's very difficult for me to make certain decisions for my dad. But it is what it is. The bottom line is you need to do as much research on anybody or anything that you decide to do. If you decide you want low-level laser light therapy, do as much research on that therapy as possible. If you decide to have PRP therapy, which is, kind of considered fringe at this point, but I do know people in my personal life, a family member who, flies down to Florida a few times a year to see Dr. Joseph Greco to have PRP. She believes that it's really helped her in her life. And, I know this person. I've seen that it's helped her. But then there are guys out there that, they end up going to whoever to get PRP, and they think it's a sham because it's not working for them. That's the nature of this game.
I think that's like that with everything, even minoxidil and finasteride. For some people, it works great, and for others, not so much.
Well, for a lot of people, it doesn't work. For all the unfortunate guys that are online that are complaining and posting that it doesn't work, on various message forums, those are the guys it's not working for. But the guys that are having success, a lot of the guys, they're not out, on the internet posting about it because they've changed their lives. The guys who are having, great surgical hair restoration, they're not out posting about it. The guys that are having great experience with hairpiece, for the most part, they're not out posting about it. There are a handful of guys that are, involved in the hair loss community who think they want to give back, and they do spend time, and they do post about their transplant experiences or the hairpiece experiences. But the vast majority of guys who have great experiences just don't do it. And I think that's unfortunate, but I understand it because they're moving on with their lives, and they're able to move on with their lives because they've had success.
Well, look at a guy like TJ, right?
Oh my God, that's a great example.
A perfect example. This guy was involved, and he was very focused on the hair loss stuff. He was here every week, and you know what? He's had multiple hair transplants. The guy has gotten his life together. He, from what I heard, he's doing really well, and he's not involved in the community anymore because there's no negativity happening right now in his life for him to complain about.
Well, let me tell you, this is a guy that had all odds against him as far as, guys who think they can't get women. Okay, I mean, he has a nice looking face, he's a good looking dude and all that stuff, but balding at a young age, under 5'2". I mean, the guy's like 5'1", I think. Okay, difficult. Initially he was like, well, he always had a great attitude. He was always like, well, I can't even get on a dating site because no one even look at me because of my height. And he was going through the hair loss thing. He had one surgery with Bosley, if I remember correctly, that did not go so well for him. Then he decided to go with Paul McAndrews, and then I think he went with Scott Alexander as well. He wanted to have a slightly bigger session. The Paul McAndrews session really got him to a great place. And he realized, okay, you know what? Surgical hair restoration is working for me. And then he decided he wanted to have a little bit more of an aggressive procedure. So he went with Dr. Alexander, completely changed his life. The guy now feels comfortable in his own skin. And he has an absolutely beautiful girlfriend now.
Yeah, I saw her.
So he is like out living his life. And he didn't abandon the show like Joe from Staten Island would say, or the hair loss community. He decided, you know what? Finasteride is working for me. Hair transplants have worked out for me. I'm moving on with my life. And, he found himself a woman who accepts him for him. And, I see all these guys who, frequent the message forums who are probably in a better physical position as far as, I mean, being 5'1" is relatively rare for a guy. It's it's the lower end of the spectrum of height.
But I mean, Spencer, there's also the other side of this where there are guys that, they don't, whatever procedure they did, regardless of getting a hair transplant, maybe they took finasteride, maybe they tried minoxidil, maybe they tried laser therapy, maybe they tried whatever, and nothing helped, or it was too far along in their hair loss where there was nothing that was helping.
Right.
Some of these guys are able to say, you know what? Nothing helped. This is what it is. I'm not going to get crazy about it. They just shave their hair and they move on.
That is really, to me, that's the cure for hair loss. That is a guy that has come to terms with it. And you know me, man. Like, I couldn't do it, especially when I was young. I'm almost 50 years old now. I'm 48 and a half, if that sounds ridiculous to say. But, I mean, I got a year and a half before I reached the age of 50. And, for most of my adult life, it was something that I couldn't deal with. I will do whatever it takes to maintain a semblance of a full-looking head of hair. And I feel extremely fortunate that I caught it at the right time, and I found the right products, including makeup, to give me what I need to move on with my life and to enjoy each and every day that I have without really obsessing about my hair. I mean, I obsess about it to some degree, but nothing compared to what I used to. And as you might hear, my dad's AIDS phone is going off.
I don't hear anything.
Like it's some sort of bizarre Indian tune. But the guys that are able to kind of move on, come to terms with it, and just like say, you know what, screw it, this sucks. I'm not really thrilled with the way I look without hair, but I know that I can kind of figure it out, get a different sense of style, maybe get jacked, go to the gym, do my thing, concentrate on my career, concentrate on making some money and, establishing a life. I got to tell you, the guys that start doing that at a young age, and then by the time they reach 40, they lick this thing. These are the real winners. I still have to take medication, to maintain the hair that I have. I don't know what this medication is doing to me on the long term, and I'm very honest about that. There are times when I think to myself, shit, I've been on this stuff, and excuse me, I'm going to try to stop using the S word. I've been on this stuff for 20 years. I don't really know. I mean, everything seems to be functioning right. My liver enzymes are fine. Everything seems to be just fine. But who knows what this medication is going to cause in the long term. I'm not saying that it will cause any damage at all. But this is something that I have to live with because I'm taking the medication for these many years for a cosmetic reason. And that's the only reason I'm taking this medication. So the guys that can come to terms with it, the guys that don't need to go under the knife, the guys that don't need to glue hair in their head, the guys that don't need to get a scalp tattoo, the guys like me who don't need to wear makeup and try to coif their hair however they can and take medication for their entire lives. These are the guys who have conquered hair loss. And I know, and I'm bringing up Joe because I know how he feels when I talk about this. He's one of the guys that just can't understand this. He's one of the guys that will never understand people coming to terms with the reality of just, you know what? People have suffered with hair loss since the beginning of time, and they've somehow gone through and lived their lives. Some of the most highly functioning people that I know in my life or Norwood's. I have to tell you, actually, the most functioning people in my life, in my sphere of friends, are people who are suffering to some degree of hair loss, and in some cases have just let it go.
I mean, if you look at the stats, if you go based on numbers, most people are suffering from some sort of hair loss.
Well, that is the way that it is.
Yeah.
Dude. I mean, like 2/3 of men by the age of 35, and I'm sorry, I'm being interrupted right now. 2/3 of men by the age of 35 suffer from hair loss, but it's something that when it happens to a person, they think that they're all alone. They think they're the only ones. Then they find the community, and they realize, you know what, I'm not alone. But sometimes these guys, it could be cathartic to talk about it and to share your thoughts and your feelings and views about hair loss. I think that's important. But once it becomes an obsession, the way that the way some guys become obsessed about it, it really could be an unhealthy situation. And while I think the message forms are really important and can really help people, I also think they can damage people. So I'm kind of like at a crossroads when it comes to message forms. I've talked to you about this before. Sometimes I don't know if I even think if it's even really good to continue Bald Truth Talk message forms. And then I'm reminded, by people who write us saying that, listen, these are the guys that are rational. They're like, listen, I know there's a lot of crap that goes on the forums, but having all this information at my fingertips really helped me. So that's kind of really the main reason we keep it open at this point. Because I got to tell you, at this stage of my career, like I said, I'm a year and a half away from 50. There are many times in my life I'm like, you know what? I really don't need to be in this business at this stage in my life. Things have been, very, very good, as far as, the way life is and business has been over the years. And there's a lot of other things that I want to do with my life. But I know how necessary this is for so many people. And one of the reasons I know is when I'm not doing the show, I get a crazy amount of emails. Now, yes, it would be nice if people actually asked how I was instead of just bitched about the show. But I understand that, the show is important to them. So, it is what it is. It really is what it is. I think that guys have to kind of learn to come to terms with it if they can. If they can't, then obviously this is a great place to vent, and this is a place for you guys to, to learn, to share. But it just bugs me when I see certain people really becoming, overly obsessed with it to the point where it's unhealthy, where they can't even live their life, where they don't want to go out and socialize, where they don't want to finish their education, or where they don't want to, go to their job, or try to improve their lives in some way, where they're afraid to date because they think that they can't date. Well, we brought up TJ. This is a guy, and TJ, you're probably watching, and I hope you are. And if you are, you can feel free to call in or to go into the chat room. You're probably not going to call because you're probably enjoying your life right now. But this is a guy who, on paper, and for the guys for the obsessed guys in the chat room, in the message forums, really had all odds against him as far as meeting a hot woman.
I mean, I'll give you another example. I mean, and we have to be understanding of other people. I go on the forum all the time, and I go on other forums too all the time to see what people are talking about when it comes to hair loss. And as soon as a 22 or 23-year-old kid goes on there and he starts writing about his hair loss and he starts posting a picture, automatically everybody's jumping on this guy saying that he's not having hair loss and he's insane and why is he complaining? And I think people have to go back in time and remember what it was like for them early on.
That's actually well said. I'm glad you brought that up.
And it happens to me. I've gone on the forum a couple times and I've spoken about hair loss, and I've gotten, even in the chat room, why is Andrew talking about hair loss? Well, because it affects me.
Well, that's the thing. I think it's important not to be dismissive of those who are really dealing with something. We're all dealing with this issue, and we deal with it to different degrees. When you first start to go through the process, it's frightening. I mean, you're used to seeing yourself a certain way, and all of a sudden, for most guys, there is a significant shed, or for a lot of guys, when they're going through the initial throes of male pattern baldness. Some guys, it's just a slow recession. They see a change. It starts to miniaturize. But, it's really frightening. And just the prospect of, having that potential of being a bald guy, even if your looks haven't changed that much in the first few years of your hair loss, it's frightening to people. So if someone comes onto a message forum and wants information and wants help and wants to get veterans' advice about their hair loss, and they're pulling up their hairline, they're taking the time to post these pictures, it's nice if you tell them, okay, you know what, in my opinion, it doesn't look like you're really dealing with visible hair loss, so you might just want to watch it. Then, that's a nice way to approach it. It's different to say, get the F out of here. There's real bald guys here suffering. Because this guy's upset, just like everybody else.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is, if a guy's in Norwood 6, there's very little chance that he's ever going to have his hair come back. I mean, that's the reality of it. Unless there's some late-breaking, urgent thing that comes along that we don't know of. That's the only time that they're going to get their hair back.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right about that. But, there are guys, and we're kind of skipping around, but there are guys who are significantly bald, who have lived that way for a while, who may not want to live that way anymore, who do have options. And I would say that if they are the right candidate, if you're that significantly bald, and if you're lucky enough to really maintain this temporal region, the sides of your scalp, then I would always suggest giving a really light, almost a see-through type of hair system a try, because just adding that hair to when you're significantly bald could be life-altering and could really make somebody look so much younger, so much more vital, especially if they're feeling that way. There are guys out there that look great bald, and then there are guys who, my camera is moving, who don't necessarily look great bald. There are plenty of pictures out there of guys who Photoshop me from a video still without my hair. I'm not loving it. I look like Kane from Kung Fu, and I'm not even joking. I said that before. But there are guys who can pull it off. For the guys who can't figure it out, I personally think if you're that bald, a hairpiece is a great option. I don't know why there's not more talk on Bald Truth Talk forums about hairpieces. Maybe it's because the show attracts guys who aren't necessarily into hairpieces. They're more into surgical hair restoration and treating their hair with conventional treatments, and maybe cutting edge stuff that's really not necessarily cutting edge. That's just there's a lot of hype involved with some of this stuff. But I think that you can't discount it. I look at a guy like Joe from Staten Island who really has let his life go because of this issue, and I feel for him. I think about him more than he realizes, actually. Just because I come into town to take care of my ailing father, and you want to go out to dinner with me, and we don't call Joe from Staten Island, doesn't mean that I'm not thinking about Joe from Staten Island, because if I wasn't thinking about him, I would not have let him call the show for 15 years. But I think about his life, and I think about his kid. What's his kid's name again?
Vincent.
Vincent. Yeah. I think about Vincent. I'm like, holy cow, this poor kid has been so affected by his father's hair loss, and now he believes that because of his dad, that he's going to be dealing with hair loss. He's like 8 or 9 years old, maybe 10 now. And I think about how he allowed this whole thing to affect his life. And I try to use him as an example for everybody out there who's dealing with this. Don't be Joe from Staten Island. Don't be this guy who completely altered his life because of his hair loss and a couple of decisions that he made and that weren't great decisions. He had some pretty bad hair transplant work done in the past.
I mean, early on, though. I mean, you're talking about early on you're talking about in the 90s. You got it.
Dude, you can get bad hair transplants today, and you can get bad hair transplants today from good doctors. It happens. People. So, what I tell people now is, if you're going into surgery, I'm going to repeat myself. You have to understand the entire scope and possible pitfalls. You can have a guy with the best track record in the world. For whatever reason, whether it's partially your biological makeup, partially the guy had a bad day or staff had a bad day, whatever it is, you can have an inappropriate outcome. You could have an inappropriate repair. You can be effed up by a good doctor. It happens every day. That's why it's so important to understand that this is real cosmetic surgery. So he made a mistake. I'm not saying his doctors were good or bad. At the time, initially he had big plugs, and then he went to get it repaired. He said the repair was not as bad. But there are people who have overcome these issues. And he didn't have that many grafts. He's really not that scarred. He could have walked away from it and lived a normal life. And he chose not to because he wouldn't, he just couldn't even fathom of, trying a hairpiece, even trying it.
Yeah.
To see if it would.
But he'll walk around. I mean, he'll literally walk around with paper towel wrapping his head. I mean,
you met him.
I met him.
Be honest with me.
Yeah.
Be honest with me, dude. When you met Joe from Staten Island, what was your initial impression? Because you know him from the show. What was your initial impression?
I don't know. Because I know him, I honestly thought a guy would show up and some put together guy, and he's like, "Hi, I'm part of SAG." You know, I'm an actor. This is part of like my acting class where I call in. I act like a lunatic. But he is whatever people think he is. I mean, he is just Joe. I don't know. A lot of time has passed. So for me, it's kind of normal. But I mean, we're bringing up a lot of.
I think you're being diplomatic.
I am being a little. I mean, he's a little freaky. I'll tell you that.
I think that he freaked you out. I think
a little
the fact that he had
very
visible. Thin. He is thin. I mean, he's not extremely thin. I mean, he's probably about 150 pounds, right? Something like that. He's not like.
Yeah, but he's like 6 foot what? He's tall.
He's probably about 6 feet, I'd say, maybe 6'1". He's pretty tall.
But I mean, we're bringing up bad transplants. I was on Ball Tree Talk earlier today, and I was just looking at some of the stuff there. And I looked at a fantastic hair transplant. The guy was, I can't remember the doctor that did it, but I'm going based on memory. Guy is 34 years old. He had about 1,900 grafts done. And they reconstructed the entire front of his hairline. And this was a guy that was probably like a real Norwood 2. And I mean, they did a great job. I can't think of the doctor's name, and I'm trying to find it, and I can't.
Well, I think I think you may be a little confused about the Norwood scale. Norwood 2 is basically, almost a full head of hair, but maybe he was a Norwood 3, Norwood 4, whatever it is. 1,900 grafts is a relatively small session, but if the hair is placed correctly and everything grows well and everything works out, that initial procedure could be life-changing, and it could really completely frame or start the frame of a person's face and really completely change your appearance. You're talking about the dimensions of your face, and if someone, for instance, has a longer face, which I do, if when you remove that hair, as your hairline continues to erode, the dimensions of your face change and your overall look changes. If you can replace that and reset that balance, then you're doing pretty well.
But I mean, I'm looking at this guy's.
That's what's really important.
I'm looking at this guy's picture, and yeah, you know what? You could see some hair loss happening, and you could see that he's losing hair significantly in the front. But I mean, you look at the after pictures, and man, this guy, it looks great.
Let me see. You just sent me the link.
I did.
Let me see what you're talking about. Okay, so you're talking about this is Dr. Bijan Ferradouni.
Yeah, there you go.
In Belgium. He's an IHS member. He's absolutely one of the best doctors, hair transplant surgeons in the world for sure. He has a stellar reputation, and he actually has a great reputation as far as presenting images. He's really great at presenting cases, and I think that's important for patients when they're considering having surgery, is to really look at the physician's online presentation. Now, listen, pictures are still pictures. In my opinion, you really need to meet with the doctor, and you also need to meet with as many patients as possible if you can, and preferably patients who have similar hair characteristics and scalp color and physical characteristics as you, if possible. It seems like a tall order, but it is possible to do, and I've known guys who have done it. But yeah, I mean, this guy's work. I mean, he is. He has some diffuse fit thinning on top. He is approaching a Norwood 3 in the front. Yeah, it's a relatively small session that absolutely.
But I mean, that little session, though. I mean, it's to me when I'm looking at it, I see a significant difference in his hairline.
Well, it's a game changer for him, and I'll tell you why. Also, in this particular case, he has very strong hair caliber. He has a thicker, coarser hair caliber, which lends itself to a good hair transplant. You're able to actually move less hair and have more of a visible appearance of volume with that type of hair. He also has darker skin with dark hair, so there's not as much of a contrast as dark hair and light skin. So, that small session made a big difference in this guy. And it was FUE, and Dr. Ferradouni is absolutely in my view, one of the game changers of the FUE side of the field. So yeah, I mean, listen, this is a guy who's happy. This is a guy who's willing to go full face. Well, he's not. He actually covered his face, but willing to allow his pictures to be used by his clinic, which means that he's extremely satisfied. A lot of guys like that out there. But for every guy, for every 100 guys who are completely satisfied, there's one guy or maybe two guys who aren't. Now, there's a couple of reasons they may not be. It could be unrealistic expectations. It could be they, just didn't have the right hair caliber. It could be the doctor effed up, even a good doctor, or their staff effed up that day.
Or it could be the expectations that were set by the doctor as well. I mean, to
Absolutely.
get you to buy into this.
It could be.
I got a good friend. I got a good friend that got a hair transplant 6-7 years ago, and he went in there thinking he's going to get his hair back, and he came out and he did not understand why he didn't have his hair back.
Yeah, well, and I think I know the person that you're talking about, and I think I know the guy that he went to. Frankly, the guy that he went to was not the most skilled surgeon in the world, so his results were pretty typical. There are surgeons out there that, there are bad results floating around who those results are not typical. But that's the thing about cosmetic surgery. I mean, there are some really top plastic surgeons out there that are incredibly skilled, that have years of experience, and, they have an effed up patient out there that's online that's just like, what happened to me? Why did this happen to me? Must be the doctor's fault. You know what? Maybe that day it was. That's the risk. You're not getting your gallbladder removed. You're not, you're not going in to have a hernia repair, which, how many general surgeons screw up hernia repairs?
Oh, yeah.
Tons unbelievable.
Tons of them.
Yeah. And a lot of these guys are skilled. It just happens. This is a human process. So, people have to understand that's why I have avoided surgery, even though I recommend it highly, even though I founded the IHRS, okay, even though I have, earned money from the industry and have talked about that freely. Surgery is a last resort because you have to understand that there are so many variables when it comes to cosmetic surgery. You want to get a chin implant, you know what, that could be screwed up too. But at least it's something that is, probably pretty consistent. And while there's possibility of, chin displacement or implant displacement, moving around, possible nerve damage, numbness that could last forever, all these real complications that happen on a regular basis, because it's such a straightforward operation, it could usually be repaired very easily. Hair's not that easy. Hair's got to grow. Go ahead, dude.
Let's talk about a guy like me, for example, okay? I'm 29. I don't have significant hair loss, but I am losing my hair. I mean, that's a thing that I see every day when I take a shower. That's a thing that I see when I look at pictures.
Well, tell me, when you take a shower, what are you seeing? Because you haven't really talked to me about that in a while. What are you seeing?
At first I was noticing hair that was thinner, that was falling out. Now I'm seeing thicker hair falling out. And at times it's a lot more. I think I go through shedding stages where at times I'm shedding, at times I'm not. What
does your wife say?
She sees significant hair loss. Not significant, but she'll see, like, I'm holding it up. Like, I could see it around here, obviously. I can see that my hairline is maturing. I'm not necessarily...
Yeah, and I'm not diminishing it at all because you're right. I think you made a great point by saying that people diminish it because you see a difference. You had a crazy hairline, so now you're seeing this change. So, listen, I totally get it.
But here's the thing, Spence. Am I going to have... I mean, there's a good chance that I'm not going to have severe hair loss. I feel like my hair is going to slowly fall out, and it's going to be a matured hairline. And the reason why I feel that way is that I don't have hair loss around my crown.
Right.
It's just in front, so it's a maturing hairline. But when I look at that guy that when I got this procedure, he's not suffering from significant hair loss, obviously, but it is a matured hairline,
it's more significant than yours.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Also, when he puts his head down, you can see that there's a little diffuse pattern happening or unpattern happening. So he has general thinning. Your hair is like a mop in the back behind your hairline. So you're it's a different animal. But listen, I get it. You have to understand though. And we're actually only going to be doing about an hour tonight, so I'm going to have to go in a minute. But you have to understand that if you have surgery at this point, even though, yes, is it possible to lower your hairline and to give you a little bit more framing the face that you would prefer? It is. Has your hairline receded since I've known you? I don't really notice it, but you've been telling me this since I've met you, and so that means that it has.
I've been telling you for 5 years, so...
Yeah, so that means that it's changed. Okay. If you want to know the truth, just ask common law. I'm just kidding. She's just so honest about everything.
I've asked her tons of times.
And what did she say?
She's honest. She's like a little bit.
Yeah, it's painful how honest she is. She should hear.
But that's good, though. See, here's the thing. That is good. You should not. I don't want someone to tell me, no. What are you talking about? You're crazy. Because then I kind of believe that. I want people to be honest about it, and I acknowledge my hair loss.
I don't think you're crazy. I think that there is a slight recession there that is like very age appropriate. That I don't know at this stage. I would say don't mess with it surgically because you could end up dealing with shock loss that would devastate you. And you know what? Chances are that shock loss is going to come back, but that's a year of your life that you're going to be dealing with it. You are an on-camera personality, dude. You know, and I always talk about this. Good friend of mine, Kent Emmons, was at one point the president of National Lampoon Radio, been on the radio forever, was going to do something on television, said to me, Spence, I want to get a hair transplant. I'm going to be on television. I said, all right, well, when do you start this gig? 4 months. I said, dude, you're not going to have, your hair's not going to grow in 4 months. Why don't you get a piece? Very resistant. Ended up doing it. I told him where to get it from, how to order it, you know, how to get it cut in. When he opened up the box, he told me initially when he got the thing at home, he was cursing me to holy hell because it's like this big, looks like a rug, you know, it's like 8 inches of hair, 6 inches of hair on this base. He didn't know what to make of it. I said, listen, dude, just go to this place, get it cut in, and I'm telling you, it'll look terrific. The guy wore it for like 3 years and would tell the world that he was wearing a hairpiece. He was so happy with it because people were like, wow, you look great. What'd you do? Lose weight, whatever it is. He was able to do his television gig. He wore that hairpiece. After a while, he decided he didn't want to do it. And he then ended up having a hair transplant because he wanted to have his hair grow. Those are the candidates. Those are the guys. And I don't know why I brought up this guy. I kind of lost my train of thought. But those are the guys that really make great candidates for surgery. They've tried the other options, and they were even happy with the other options, but they decided, you know what? It's a little bit of a pain in the ass. I'm going to go get a hair transplant. You, my friend, I know why I brought that up, because you're an on-air personality. You, my friend, could destroy a year of your career. Well, actually, no, you could probably wear a hat on the air. It wouldn't make a difference.
No, you know that's crazy you said that, because I was thinking about that last night where, okay, let's say I got a hair transplant now. I don't see it to be a huge procedure. I would just fix the front up a little bit. What do I do then? Okay, I have to shave my head. Right? I mean, it's going to look bizarre if the front is growing and the rest is not.
Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, it depends on what kind of procedure you have done. If you're just really working on the hairline and not within the hairline but in front of the hairline, since you comb your hair back, you can probably do that. They wouldn't have to shave your head unless you decide to get, you know, FUE. Frankly, at your age, that's what I would suggest anyway. But there is at least one doctor that is doing minimally shaven or non-shaven FUE. I think it's Dr. John Cole is able to do it without shaving your scalp. I'm not quite sure. I mean, you're going to have to cut the hair down pretty short in the back to get it done. But the point is, it can be done. But why do you want to go through that process if you may not have to? You know, think about, if you're going to take a step, think about medication first and see if that could at least hold the hair where you have it. Because honestly, dude, you're going to be 30 years old. You have a very age-appropriate hairline. And to everyone else, including women, including guys who are dealing with hair loss, you have a full head of hair. You may have some jerks in the chat room that are going to tell you that you're balding, but the truth is it's because, you know, they're balding themselves, and, you know, they see that as your Achilles heel, so they're willing to exploit that. But I definitely think for a guy like you and anyone who is watching the program now, who sees Andrew Zarian's hair and says, you know what, I have the same problem, I'm going to get a hair transplant, my advice would be to avoid it. But listen, guys, I got to run. I wanted to do at least an hour tonight, excuse me, to, you know, just let you guys know that I'm alive. The show is going to continue. It's going to be bigger and better, according to Mr. Zarian, in 2014.
A lot of plans.
We got a lot of plans. Doing some new imaging. Going to have a lot of great stuff happening, and more resources where people are going to be able to listen to and watch The Bald Truth. So we're excited about that. I'm not sure if I want to continue the chat, though, dude.
You don't know. I've been a defender of this chat. I fight them every day, and I go through it with them all the time. But I've been a huge defender of them. To you, I think it's important to have people in the chat room. I think it's important to have people discussing it while you're doing the show.
Here's the good news. This is the good thing about the chat for me is that it's not my chat, and I don't control the chat. You guys control the chat. And I think that's good because you guys want to kick somebody out, you kick them out. You do what you want to do. Now, Andrew, you said you wanted to take at least one call this show. I'll do it, but I do got to go. I do have to leave.
Okay, let me just say this. You and Suncast have outnumbered me with killing the chat. You guys want to kill the chat. I'm fighting both of you to not kill the chat.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to... Well, first of all, I can't kill the chat. You're the boss when it comes to running the show through GFQ. So the audio is the audio. That's my thing. It's your chat. It's your chat that's connected to the Bald Truth website. Your shows actually run on my website 24 hours a day. So that's your thing. I'm choosing not to look at the chat anymore. That's my choice. I did this broadcast without the chat, and I have to tell you, it's pretty liberating.
It was like radio. Really it was like doing radio.
It's like doing radio with a crappy microphone and earpiece. But yeah, I mean, so my resolution for 2014 is not to go near the chat. If you want to run the chat, you run it any way you want. Obviously don't let people, get defamed and stuff like that. But I can't even tell you what to do. That's your chat. You figure it out.
All right, we got one caller. Last call, the only call we'll take. It's Bob from Boston.
Sure. All right, we'll say hi to Bob, and then I got to go.
All right, Bob's on the air.
Spence.
Bob.
How you been, Spence?
I'm okay, man. How are you?
Not too bad. Been kind of busy for a while with work and stuff. Then I go to catch a show every once in a while. It's not on all that often, so...
I'm sorry, we are going to have it on more often, and frankly, we're going to be doing it weekly once again. This is not to make an excuse, but I've been dealing with a lot here in New York, coming back and forth, and I've been actually here for almost a month now. My dad is in a very bad way, so
I've been there. You have to. I went through the same thing with my father, my mother, so you just have to do that. I mean, the way I look at it.
You got to care for him, man. That's my duty as a son. So it's a lot more important, actually, than frankly doing the show. So
no doubt about it. Again, I went through it a couple times.
I think there's something going on with Bob's line.
Yeah, Bob, I could hardly hear you, man.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I'm here.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the service that we're using or if it's Bob's line itself. Bob, listen, I'm glad you called in. I'm sorry that we really can't hear you. Just know there's a lot more great stuff that's going to be happening with the Bald Truth. I've kind of been reinvigorated, re-inspired by Andrew Zarian to really make things happen. And I don't know what's going on.
Don't even ask what just happened.
Is he all right?
Yeah, he's fine.
Okay. How does that happen?
I don't even know.
And you know what? He's young, dude. He's young. Mine is 90.
Oh, God.
Well, listen, guys, it's just starting. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I'm so sorry that, A, we only able to do an hour and 10 minutes, and B, that I'm doing the show from my dad's apartment here in New York City, which I guess is kind of interesting. You see some, like, old school level-or blinds back there and some city lights. But Bald Truth's going to be doing a lot this year. A lot of great stuff happening with the Bald Truth UK as well, which is very exciting. So listen, let's see if I can do this broadcast next week as well. I'm probably still going to be in New York. May enlist Joe Tillman to be a part of the broadcast next week. We'll see. But Andrew, you've been a great co-host and a great producer tonight. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you for doing the show.
Hey, I loved it, man. I loved it. Guys, listen, good night. Be strong. God bless, and thanks for tuning in.